Well, I decided I'd better do a mid-month wrap-up because I've got 9 books up to the 14th, and there's 28 days, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to have probably maybe as many by the end of the month if things keep going the way they're going. You know, just the ones that I know are going to be finishing and all stuff. So, yeah. But that's okay. That's okay. I just thought, you know, let's break this up. If I can get through some, because a couple of these should be a really short review. They were just kind of meh. But if I get through fast enough, I'm going to actually look at the time here. If I get through fast enough, then I'm going to really dive into one and compare it to another book. If I don't, I'll leave that off and I'll just do a separate video on those two. I finally decided that's what I'm going to try to do. We shall see. So, read a lot of books and not even, so I have not finished my Austen. I have not finished my Chantal Reads All Day. I have not finished my Buddy Read, although that should be finished this weekend. I have not finished one of my library books and haven't even started another one, but those were still kind of iffy. I've already renewed them. Life is good. I'm going to leave Lewis out because I finished that tonight, and tonight is not before the 14th. So, but I do have these. All right. So we're going to start back at the first one I finished. It is An Overdue Match by Sarah Monson, and guys, this is a rom-com, and this is what I love about Sarah Monson. She adds so much depth to her stories. They're funny, but they're not even, it's not even just the faith. The faith is usually pretty rich, but it's not even just that. It's just that there's so many layers and so much depth, and things that shouldn't work, she knows where to put them in to make them work. So, like in any other book, this guy, is his name Kai? I think his name is, or is that could be Angela Ruth Strong. No, it's Ty. See, I was close. So in any other book, Ty's hypersensitivity to what Eve, Evelyn, I think it's, yeah, so her name is Evangeline, and she, let's just move back. I'll tell you a little bit about the book. Let's start there instead of just trying to go into all the depth, right? So Evangeline has alopecia. I always want to say it backwards. And so she's lost all her hair. She has complete, and it's gone. And she had been engaged, and her fiance, when he discovers that her hair is gone and there's nothing that's going to happen, he dumps her because he just can't handle the hairlessness. I say she dodged a bullet. But it left some serious scars on her because she's already dealing with the fact that her whole life has changed. And, you know, it didn't go much into it in the book, but my mind was going into, there's a lot of changes you have to think about. She can't walk around bareheaded anymore. She will end up with massive sunburns on her head, you know, and that is like skin cancer waiting to happen. So just even that, you know, she's had to learn to do eyebrows and fake lashes and stuff because she has no hair. And part of me wants to say, so what? You just who cares? Because I tend not to care about stuff like that. But if I, on the other hand, okay, let me just put this out there. When I had been really, really sick for a long time, I hadn't worn cosmetics in decades, but I got really, really sick. And people were so used to me being sick until they found out what was wrong with me. Asthma wasn't a big deal, but they got used to me, you know, being sick. So people would ask me long after I was well, you know, how are you? You look like you're really, and I'm like, am I that hideous? Because seriously, I'm good and I've been good for a long time. So I started wearing cosmetics again, just for that purpose, because it told people, oh, she's well now, because it looked different. It looked the way you're supposed to look in American standards. It's ridiculous. And so I got to thinking about it. Even if she was the most self-confident, self-possessed person in the world, she might like to have eyebrows and eyelashes and something on her head simply for the purpose of making sure that people aren't constantly staring and asking and badgering. It's like when you go out with 8 kids and they're like, don't you know what causes that? Well, no. Would you like to tell me? Why don't you inform them while we're at it? I mean, it was just, I got to thinking about it and I was like, okay, so this is, she's really done her homework on this gal, right? You know, forget her own personality. Even her own personality might have been different, but it got dictated by the change. And so, I mean, there was all of that going on. But then we meet Ty. See, I'm doing it again. We meet Ty, and Ty has had his own issues, and he understands. His aren't the same by any stretch, but he understands in a way that she can't. She probably can't understand that he does get it. So there are aspects of the book where there are very few guys on the planet that would get it the way he got it. But because of his circumstances, it works. What might have made me roll my eyes in other books, because I have, it worked here. Even to the, okay, I'm a little done with the whole consent thing in books, because it is so unnatural the way it's done most of the time. I'm not kidding you. I have seen stuff that just, it's cringier than some guy just grabbing some gal's hand without any warning. And she's like, who are you? What are you doing? Get your hands off me. You know, it's even cringier than that, just because it's like, seriously, this is so unnatural. In this book, if any other character or situation, if I had read the exact same things in any other book without these situations and these people, I would have been, I might have stopped reading, because I might have just been done. I'm just really, it's kind of like the not like an other girls trope. I'm kind of done with it. And it's sad that it's been done to death so badly that something that should be natural. I mean, once upon a time it was natural for, you read books written way back, and there were men who would say, may I hold your hand? And it was natural, and it never feels stilted and awkward, even though it was something very unfamiliar. You know, even as a kid, it felt natural. I would read a book and I'd be like, yeah, it feels. Today, the way it's being done, it's almost like a badge that some of these guys, these male characters wear. Like, I am enlightened and I will ask. And I'm just like, this wasn't like this. It worked because of who she is. She needed that extra careful. And it was like, it was just, I had so much fun. It was funny. The characters were neat. Their personal growth was great. And the ending made it all just, and I'm not even talking happily ever after, all the hearts and fuzzies, but I also have to say, okay, the whole romance side of rom-com isn't what I'm there for. I'm for the awkward, for the people, for the reality of relationships, the less than idealized romance, right? That's what I'm there for. But in this one, even their delight in each other didn't make me cringe, which it usually does. I think I actually read a kiss. I mean, actually, didn't just skim down until I got past it and keep reading. No, I think I actually read it. And that's really highly unusual for me. Can't tell you, I could probably name on one hand the number of books that I actually have. So, an overdue match. I am crazy looking forward to the next one, because Sarah does it again. I love Sarah Monson. She is just a lot of fun. But her fun has steps, and that's like right up my alley. So lots of talk about, something pretty pretty minor. Then I finished If the Stars Awaken. This, I went into it, and I'm pretty sure I read, maybe Kate said that it was kind of a fantasy retelling of the whole nativity and everything that goes with it. And she may have said it, and that may be why I had that idea. But that's the idea I had going into it. I'm not 100% sure I'm right. but it fits even if it's not. And yet not in a, this is one of those retellings that is done really well in a sense that it doesn't feel like a copycat. It feels like here is the core of a story. I'm going to take that core and put it in a new world and give it a new, and it happens. And it's so cool. So we have a king and his wife. They have lost a baby, and now they have a son, but the stars are supposed to tell them what the baby's name is, and the stars do not tell them. And there's this big ceremony, and it doesn't happen. And so all kinds of things are going on. We don't know what's happening. You know, why isn't this here? But then the stuff starts happening. You have an attack. You have an escape. You have, I mean, you've got the whole, everything's happening, you know, like in the Bible. And you have these stargazers and these wise men and what they're doing. And so, and yet it's not the same at all. If you did not know the nativity story well, and maybe, or maybe not or if you had no idea that this has any ties to it, you might not see it. So I can't decide if I saw it because I had that connection, or if it's really there as much as I think it is, or if it's just because I know that story well and I, you know, read it here and I feel it's kind of like Narnia with Aslan. We see the story that influenced it, the symbolism in there and everything. You know, I kind of feel like there's a little of that going on here. I really liked it. There were a few parts that got slightly slow, not too bad, but just a little slow. But I don't know, and that's why I'm making a point of this. I don't know if that was because I got interrupted reading it, and so I had to pick back up, or if it actually is. But really did enjoy it. Kate, I have liked other books that she's read. I think there was like Red Boots or something. Really liked that. So I'm always looking forward to what's coming from Kate and Perry. Perry Kirkpatrick is her sister. So always kind of looking for them. So I read those. Okay, then I read Before the Coffee Gets Cold. And I'm still being crazy careful with this book. Okay. I found out just before I started it that this is book 1 of a series. And I was really excited. I was like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. There's like 5 books. This is gonna be great. No, I'm gonna stop here. I gave it 3 stars. I am not sorry I read it. It was an interesting read. There were some cool twists, you know, but it's not really a story as much as an experience. I mean, you go into this coffee shop and there are rules, but you go into this coffee shop and there is this table. And if you sit at this table and you want to go to a specific place back in time, you can't change anything, but you can go back in time to a specific moment in the coffee shop only. Everything stays in there. So the entire book takes place in the coffee shop. But you have that moment. They will pour you a fresh cup of coffee, and you have until that coffee gets cold to drink you have to drink the coffee, and you have to do it before it gets cold. And if those things don't happen, you actually become a ghost, and you're the ghost that sits in that chair all the time. And the only time you can sit in that chair is if the ghost gets up to go to the bathroom. And so, yeah, I didn't drink a lot of coffee, and there's not a problem, right? But so each person has their reason they want to go back, and what's going on and all the things. Again, it was okay, but maybe if I read it in the original Japanese and I understood Japanese culture, it might have more depth for me. But for the most part, it was just an experience. It was like, yeah, that was nice. And then, yeah, kind of move along. Nothing too phenomenal. Okay, next up, I listened to the Sydney Chambers and the Pantomime of Evil. And this one is my favorite. I'm a little nervous about future books. I've actually kind of set him on hold for a little bit, not because I don't want more, because I really am enjoying him. But I liked this one so much that I'm a little nervous. I was like, So I thought, I'll just take a little break so that I'll be like, oh, I really want to get into the next one. And maybe it'll have been enough distance that I won't still have that. Oh, what if it's not as good? That's what I'm hoping for. So, but this one, it was just, there was so much fun. The crimes were all incredibly varied, which I thought was really cool. You get a little bit more of English culture, and it's really kind of neat because everything is from Sydney's perspective, if I recall correctly. I may be wrong about that. Anyway, but we get a different take on English culture because his wife is German. And, so they went to a pantomime. I have always thought I would not like a pantomime. I've always just thought that an English pantomime and it's just not my thing. And I was right. So we get to see it through the pages of a book, so it's not like in our face. But the crude jokes and the I don't know, it just wasn't for me. But I got to see it, the culture of it, through him trying to explain it to his wife. So I'm seeing it through an Englishman's eyes for the benefit of someone who isn't English. So it's almost like he's explaining it to me as a non-English person. And so it was really kind of cool. In some ways, there were parts of the last one that I even liked better, but as a whole, this one was just really good. Yeah, I like this series. I like how Sydney isn't perfect, but he has a heart to live his faith and to do what's right. Even when he fails, he's like, picks himself back up, throws himself back at the mercy of God and moves along. And he does it unapologetically. The writer doesn't make apologies for faith. And yet it's not Christian fiction. It is not Christian fiction, but it's okay because someone is treating faith respectfully. And I thought, you don't always see that. And yet I really did in this one. So I just thought it was really good. I really liked it. Next up, I read The Blooming of Delphinium. Okay. I really liked On Moonberry Lake. I'm pretty sure I gave it 5 stars. I really liked it. It was funny. I liked seeing the different personalities and kind of getting to know the character of Moonberry Lake, the town, the area, everything. Loved all of that. I loved the faith of the guy across the street. I loved the older woman and all of her, everybody thought she was a witch. And it was like, why? Because she is still grieving and works through her grief by taking care of a graveyard. So that makes you really, but people think like this. And so it was that was really neat. People had problems with it. I disagree with the problems. I think it shows in here, but, I understand where they were coming from. But there were accusations of it being like new agey because someone made comments about, throw it out into the universe and maybe the universe. And it's like, that person's not a Christian. So, yeah. Anyway, this one, we're now in, and that one took place in like this lodge outside of town that used to have people coming and staying there and everything. This one takes place in town. There is something on the back of this. I think I got it. This one takes place in town. Delphinium owns a flower shop. She has what is that? It's like on the tip of my tongue. Starts with an S, where people can either hear colors or taste colors or see music, synesthesia. Anyway, she has this with sense. She smells people very specifically. They have sense. And because they have sense, she can kind of get a feel for who they are and, what is going on with them. And so in some ways, I think there is a subtle lesson in, don't rely on yourself with these things, because it both helps and doesn't help her. Okay, just putting that out there. But in this one, there is a retirement home that the I think they would call themselves inmates. I'm not kidding. This is the kind of people they are a riot. The residents of this retirement home have basically, they've kind of gone on strike. They get rides into town, and they showed up at her flower shop. Isn't it a beautiful flower shop? They showed up at her flower shop, and they're like, "Can we play poker in your cold case?" And they get her to go out and buy them, the snacks that that this guy who's running the retirement home has these wonderful meals that are really healthy and really good. And all they want is like Vienna sausages, I mean, they just want something, cookies with their whatever. It all starts, I think, with tapioca pudding. They're like, we want tapioca pudding, and he won't give it to us, so we're going on strike. They're a riot. It is absolutely hilarious. Well, on top of all of that, she has a secret from the town, and I think you find out right away, so I don't think it's a spoiler, but her business is floundering. She is about ready to get foreclosed on, and if she doesn't ramp up her business, she's going to lose everything, including this shop had belonged to her grandma. Where she lives is above it. She's going to lose literally everything, including special memories, right? And so there's all of that, and then you've got this one guy who keeps coming in and buying flowers for his girlfriend, and then you've got the guy who's running the retirement home who keeps coming in, and he's not making sense to her. And then when things go down, everything gets hilarious. There's so much. I think I laughed on every page. I certainly laughed in every chapter. But there is so much faith and relationships and healing in here. She has relationships with people in her life that are really strained, and I can't say more. So I loved it. Cannot wait for the next book. This one I read even faster than On Moonberry Lake. The next one, I think I'm just going to set everything aside when it comes in, the day it shows up, and I'm just going to read it. I haven't seen when it's coming out, but that's all she says is this is the only world she's going to write in. So I'm like, give me that book. I need the book. So yeah, awesome. Loved it. Even better than the first. Then I listened to Anne of Avonlea. I'm listening for the Year of Maud. I'm listening to the Anne books. I'll read the other ones physically probably, but the Anne books I'm listening to because I want to experience them differently. And Anne of Avonlea, for one thing, how did I forget about Davy and Dora? I am just... I remember the moment she came back. I didn't even remember when she was off to a funeral. The moment she came back with those kids, I was like, oh, that's right. And I was like all in it. Just like, give me all that, because I love them. They're such opposites. And sometimes I feel like Dora has to be opposite just to survive. But oh wow! But there were lots of things that I had forgotten about Anne of Avonlea. And I think part of it is because, I've read it a few times, but my kids would play the movies so much. And, the movies combine so many books into the movie that it leaves out a lot. So my brain in the back of my head, I was remembering, Miss Lavender and, Echo Cottage. And I was remembering, I had totally misremembered the Willowware platter that she goes to buy. I thought that was in book 4, Windy Poplars. I thought that happened there. But no, that was in this one. I was like, oh, wow. But Mr. Harrison next door, I forgot about him and the parrot and all the, I forgot it all. And so it was neat because it felt a little bit like just before something would happen, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is coming. Because, I have read it enough that I was, but it had been long enough. So yeah, that was great. The thing that jumped out the most at me in this one, is just watching her and seeing, I see so much of myself in her. She had all these lofty ideals of what she wanted to be as a teacher and as a person. And then when humanity stepped in and kind of slapped those ideals around a little bit, I loved that she had the experience because it is a growth thing, right? But I also loved that she recognized, like with the whole, the Sloan kid, what was his first name? I can't remember his first, Jeb? Was it Jeb? Anyway, or Artie? Anyway, it was the Sloan kid, where she finally whips him. And look, the kid deserved it. Okay, I'm just going to say. He had, but she is right when she said, if I had decided that I was going to do this and did it because I decided I was going to do it, that would be one thing. But I just got mad and lost it. And that was wrong. And she is 100% right about that. And so I loved that they showed, all those sides. Montgomery is pretty brilliant. I just gotta say. But then on top of that, Paul Irving, I loved how you have Paul and Davy, and they are actually very similar people that express themselves in very opposite ways. They're both very intense and devoted people, but Davy his is all outward and in your face, and if he can't get it expressed right, it's expressed in all the inappropriate ways. And Paul, I love the fact that Paul isn't a wuss. She could have turned him into a total little wuss, but she didn't. She made him a strong little boy who was, just a good kid. I love Paul because he's not just this little priggy, he's a neat kid, but they both also have an interesting outlook. Every time you have a conversation between Davy and Anne, they'd be talking and he would ask a question and end it with, I want to know. Paul, this is brilliant. It has to be deliberate. Paul, on the other hand, they would have these conversations and he would make an observation, kind of the opposite of the question, right? He'd make an observation and then he would say, teacher. And it just, I've never seen that juxtaposition, and I just, oh wow. It just like enriched, and I loved it. I had so much fun with just that all over again. I'm so looking forward to, Anne of the Island. Yeah, I have not started it. I've been a good girl. Instead, I started with this whole new author that we'll get to in a minute. But yeah, that one was really, 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 really good. Then I was in a group on Facebook, and a gal had a book that she was sharing, and it sounded amazing. So I'm going to tell a little bit about it, and then I'll give you my 2 cents worth. But I'm gonna pull this up here because if I don't, yeah. So it says, she's sunshine and chaos, he's grump and order. In Evergreen Falls, opposites don't just attract, they collide. She's a whirlwind of sunshine. Oh. She's a whirlwind of sunshine. He's the town's resident grump. Isn't that kind of repetitive? Anyway, together they're about to rewrite the rules of love in Evergreen Falls. Okay. When Lila Bennett moves to the snow-dusted, postcard-perfect town of Evergreen Falls, she's armed with big dreams and even bigger plans to revitalize the failing Valentine's Festival. Her secret weapon, endless optimism, heart-shaped cookies, and determination to bring the whole town together, even if it means convincing the grumpiest man in town to play along. Noah Grayson is perfectly fine living his quiet, book-filled life running chapter and verse. This is why I decided to read this book. I was reading it in the hospital when I was down there with my with my daughter. Anyway, after heartbreak turned his heart to stone, he sworn off love and all things Valentine's. But when Lila bursts into his life with her glittery decorations and relentless charm, his carefully ordered world is turned upside down. Yeah. So this thing was really, really short. I'm pretty sure it was less than 150 pages. Definitely less than 200, but I think it was less than 150. It was really short. And it's not that I didn't like the characters. I liked both of the characters a lot. They were great. But she is definitely the sunshiniest sunshine you've ever sunned and shined. I mean, it's almost like, let's find a way to outsun the sun. Maybe she played that Beatles song too much while she was writing. I don't know. She's almost, no, there's no almost about it. She's obnoxiously sunny. And yeah, the glitter is real and my teeth itched every time it was mentioned. But then you have Noah, and he's supposed to be the grumpiest grump of the grumps. It's like she wanted to make both of them as opposite and as immersed in that trope as humanly possible. Except I didn't believe he was as grumpy as he came off. He wanted to be left alone, but that doesn't really mean grumpy, you know? And honestly, I would want to be left alone for her. She was, and don't get me wrong, I liked her as a character. It's not that. It's just that she's a bit much. You need her in doses. But I just felt like the grump side, we're supposed to believe it because reasons and because we're told so. I didn't see it. And then everything just kind of went from there. But the biggest problem was that it had a beautiful build-up. And then when we're starting to really get to, a chance where they're going to get to know each other, it's like they went from enemies. Oh, wait, I like you. Boom, done. I mean, the book is over. And I'm just like, whoa, what happened? It needed at least 3 or 4 more chapters. And again, it was funny. And rom-com is my thing. If I'm going to do romance, I want rom-com. And this had lots and lots of potential. But it was too short. It was too short and too rushed at the end. And I think I could have dealt with the short if that meeting of the minds moment had happened a little, chapter or 2 earlier. It wouldn't have felt as rushed. It just didn't live up to what I was hoping, because I mean, bookstore romance, I'm all in, even if it's romance. I don't care. Give me all the bookstoreness, right? So, but it was well written enough, and the characters were engaging enough that I am going to go see about this series and see if maybe this is just a shorter version of something. Maybe the rest of them are slightly longer. Give one of them a try, see how I like it. Maybe it was just this one, and who knows? But yeah. Okay, next up I read, and because that one was done so fast, I think I read it. I bet I read it in less than an hour and a half for sure. So then there was like, if you liked that, you'll like this. And I was just going through anything on Kindle Unlimited. I definitely wanted something lighter, which is why I chose romance, because I'm like, give me rom-com, something light, something that I don't have to focus on in case I have to stop and start in the middle of it a million times because, baby, right? Yeah. So I read Suited for Love. And it's by Ash Keller. I don't think I gave the name for the other gal. It's like Annabeth something, I think. And I've already closed it. But it'll be in the thing, in the description. But Suited for Love, she is a low plus size. I mean, she's not my plus size. She's like half of me and still plus size, right? Gal, she's a buyer for a boutique in New York City. And she wants to do something to bring in plus size clothing for this boutique, and basically is told, we don't want your size in here. So maybe she's worked for them for 10 years. So, maybe this is the time for you to just take off and go elsewhere, and she's just kind of blown away. Well, at the same time, she inherits this building in this town, down in, South Carolina, I think. And so she's thinking, okay, I'm just going to go down there. I'm going to start my own boutique. We're going to make this happen. This is going to be a thing. And it's just, again, it's just all about her and, the guy next door who wanted her store, and now she can't, and now he can't have it. So, what's going to go on there? And, is this going to be this enemies thing? There's no real enemies. There's no real conflict in the book. Not really. The conflict all happened at the beginning, and then it's just really, the conflict is all in her head that she's expecting to show up, but it never really does. And it was incredibly, I think it has 92 pages. It was crazy short, way too short. I think I rounded the last one up to 4 stars, barely. This one, it's a solid 3. It maybe not even solid, but meh. This one, I'm not going to go to the next one. I'm not going to give it a shot. There's no reason for it. But at the same time, on the way down, I was listening to Mary Stewart. Now, I don't think I've ever read anything by Mary Stewart. The name sounded familiar. I think maybe Mitzi talked about her, and the name sounded familiar. So I kind of assumed that I had probably read some of hers, back in the day, back in Phyllis Whitney days. It just felt like it was something like that. Yeah, no, I have not, as far as I can tell, I have not read her. I started with Rose Cottage, and in this one, so I don't remember names. I think her name's Kathy. Yeah, her name is Kathy. I'm not going to get anyone else's name right. Kathy grew up in Rose Cottage in this village in England. She was the illegitimate daughter of a young woman who, when she was young, mom leaves. So she was brought up by grandma, and now, she moved away, she got married, she's back because grandma wants her to come and, pack up the stuff in the cottage. They're going to the people who own it are going to renovate it. And so grandma wants all her stuff. And what the primary thing that grandma wants is, there's this hidey hole, get the stuff in there. So she goes, and from there, she gets to this town. To me, this felt like D.E. Stevenson meets suspense, because it has all that charm and everything that you get from a D.E. Stevenson book. I really loved it. It's got the characterization that I loved, all that stuff. But it also has, this suspense. And the suspense was light. Figured out pretty quickly what was going on. And I think we're supposed to, but we're supposed to kind of feel for Kathy, who doesn't. And then there's just, the story unfolds, and it's just a really good story. I really, really liked Rose Cottage. That's one of the best books I read this month. I don't think it's the best, but it's definitely one of the best books. I really enjoyed it. And for people who don't usually like suspense, she's kind of known as like the queen, or the originator, if you will, of like romantic suspense. I keep seeing that around. If suspense is just too much for you, this is like light. This is romantic suspense light. It's really obvious what's going on. It's not anything like you see in some of the other ones where it is a little more intense. And I feel like, Dad burn it, I think I have another one that I haven't reviewed yet. Oh well, it'll be in the next one. But so there's that. Okay, I'm gonna try this and see if I can do this compare contrast thing with the next one I read by her. It's Thorny Hold by Mary Stewart. These I've been listening to, the Mary Stewarts, and really, really am enjoying them. So Thorny Hold it's pretty neat. In this, Jilly, she's the daughter of a vicar. Very lovely man. He was a wonderful part of her life. His wife, not so much. She had a really difficult life with her mother. And then she had this godmother who is her mother's cousin. And people keep referring her to her aunt. Everybody just assumed it was her aunt. And because of that, it gets, in my brain, I may say aunt because of that. But, and the first time she met this cousin, there was this little scene with a little crystal ball, and it feels like feels a little spiritualist, and I was wondering if we were going to even go into witchy. And then a little later, absolutely, this book goes witchy, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is not what I want. This is not the kind of story that I enjoy. And so what happens is, eventually she loses her parents, and at the same time, her aunt dies. Her cousin dies and leaves her this cottage, Thorny Hold. And it's a different part of England, so she goes down there, and weird things are happening. And this is where I start finding out about this witchy stuff, and this is where I'm ready to say, not so sure about this. But something kept me reading, and I can't recall if it was something in the book or if it was because I was listening while I was driving. I feel like it was something in the book, and my mind said, well, if I had been driving, I would have been listening anyway, so oh well. But it might have been actually reversed. I'm not sure. But I'm so glad I kept going. I ended up giving the book basically 4.5 stars. I feel like the more I think about it, the more likely I am to give it 5, but I may actually listen again pretty soon. I'm in the middle of another one by her, and when that one's done, I might go back and re-listen to it and see if I get the same vibe that I get from it. Because this is not supposed to be Christian fiction by any stretch. And on top of that, I've seen it in some of the other books by her too. There's this slight feel of almost distaste for faith, and yet where it should be treated with respect, it is. If someone has a genuine faith, that is like the way she treated the father and his faith, and Jilly's and hers, she gives them respect. But the mother, and then in Rose Cottage, there is a great aunt, the grandma's sister, are horrible people in the name of faith. They're just horrible. And she doesn't shy away from that. If faith has injured, she's going to put it out there. And so I don't feel like she has an agenda, which I appreciate, but she is not afraid to go there with any abuse of faith, for sure. But I don't know. I was like, okay, we're good here. But what she does with this whole witchy thing, which is a part of the story, but it's not. See, I gotta be so careful. So I'm just gonna say right now, you know what? There's a very good chance I will give spoilers. But in my opinion, the strength of the story is experiencing the story more than the and I'm not going to give all the spoilers, but the strength of the story is in the experience and the going through it with her, and not knowing where things are coming from. I mean, I kind of figured most of it out, but it's just the way it's handled. There's just like, what on earth is going on? But I loved what she did with it. And I loved that she didn't, I can't think of the word I was going for. Along the lines of, she didn't glamorize this witchiness. She showed it for what it is. And there is no, the character of Jilly puts a stop to, she pretty much puts a stop to it. I really liked how it was handled and how it was addressed. It wasn't that she wasn't pretending like there aren't people who participate in this kind of thing. She didn't trivialize it, but she also didn't, glamorize is the only word I can come up with, and it's not right. But anyway, she really showed the weakness of this kind of thing. I mean, it was just like, I was really, really, really impressed with how it was handled. Unlike comparing it to, on the other hand, Elizabeth Goudge. And Elizabeth Goudge is writing from a place of faith in the White Witch. And they talk about in Thorny Hold about a White Witch and that stuff. But over here in Elizabeth Goudge, that's the name of the book. And there is this woman that they're calling a White Witch. And it's just this whole story. In that book, there is a character who is supposed to be this White Witch and all the things that go with it. I wrote for my review, I gave it 2 stars. I said there are several things to love in this book. I did tap quite a few quotes. And now that I'm done, I'm not sorry I read it, but that's all it has going for it. At first, I was bored. A friend said it got better, so I kept going, and she was right. It does get better. But keeping going also added things I seriously did not like as well. In no particular order and without too much spoilery details, my problems include 1. Dark, evil witchcraft involving the skull of a small child in one case. Great heaping gobs of political conflict takes place during the English Civil War. Emotional and light physical infidelity. And the blurry lines of white witchcraft and the help of good spirits with her spells. We have this book and there is some genuine strong faith in it. There really is. We have this book written by a Christian author with some strong faith themes. But I got more, I guess you would say, things played out correctly on the page without any preachiness or anything, not like that, but in a secular book by someone who doesn't make any claim to Christ, at least in connection with the book. I have no idea what this woman's faith is or isn't. But in her book, Jilly behaves, Jilly is supposed to be a person of faith. She grew up in the Church of England with a vicar for a father. She believes. She behaves as you would expect someone in that, even with weak faith, you would still expect them to, how she reacts to these things and what she does. And it's not that she doesn't show interest in what may or may not have been, but it also goes back to this cousin and how the cousin, who doesn't make a pretense of faith, still behaved in a way that is correct, despite what people think about her. And that's really a big part of just what happens in the story and all the things. So I found it fascinating just comparing these 2 books with this White Witch in them and what, they were and were not biblically correct or not, how people behaved, what the motivations were. It was just a fascinating, juxtaposition. And I feel very strange saying I would never recommend The White Witch to anyone. And I would absolutely recommend Thorny Hole to anyone who isn't uncomfortable knowing that the book contains something that I disagree with, but how it was handled, you know, it's not glorified. It's that's actually more like what the word I was looking for, you know. It's treated as a matter of fact. This is a thing that some people participate in, and this can be the result, and all the things that go with it. So anyway, that's what I've read so far, and where my brain has, I haven't stopped thinking about the differences between those two books since I finished Thorny Hold, and I've been wanting to talk about it. I thought I would do a whole video on it. I'm like, I don't think I need a whole one, and since I had time, this might be a little long, but oh well, we're going to go with it. We're going to call it good. So yeah, I'll be back with something. I don't remember what I have planned. It's over there, and I'm not going to go look. So I hope you have a great weekend. And yeah, we got some good reading going on. Anything I need to know about? Just saying. I'll see you later.